All right, Eugene, congratulations on The King.
Thank you very much.
Yes, my dad and I are big fans of Elvis. We've gone to Graceland several times.
Great.
Yeah, my dad said nobody was ever more handsome or more talented than Elvis. So you're talking to an Elvis fan here.
Great.
So we've seen dozens of documentaries about Elvis over the years. Why did you want to make one and juxtapose it with America, the state of America?
Well, I don't know that I juxtapose Elvis in America. I think Elvis is organically juxtaposed with America. There's nobody more American than Elvis, and there's nobody more representative of the American dream. But we're also living at a time right now where it's no secret to anybody that America is struggling with what the American dream is. Who is the American dream for? How's the American dream doing for everyday people, for working people? So it seemed to me that since my focus in my life has been with trying to ask of this country that it be the best that it can be for everybody, looking at Elvis Presley and his expression of the American dream is a very poetic thing to do right now, because you have to look back in time and think, gosh, didn't it all seem a little bit more colorful then? Didn't it all seem like the sky was bluer and the road was stretching farther out ahead? And I think there's something that has happened that Americans are struggling with their idealism. So to bring back Elvis and ask some of these questions and figure out where we want to go next seemed very timely.
Here's a fan service question. The Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Talk a bit about how you got your hands on.
Well, I'd have to kill you if I told you. No, the truth is that we were making the film without a car.
Okay.
We were just making a poetical film about Elvis in America. And then it became known to us that possibly the film could buy the car, that his car was coming up for auction. And what if we bought this car, like kind of the way indie films used to like make themselves on a credit card and then hope to pay it back? We tried to figure out whether the budget of the film could allow us to buy the car, make the film, hopefully not destroy the car, and then sell the car again. And so that gamble was a gamble I've been living with for a bunch of years, because I had to tell the investors in the film and the distributor and the financiers that we were going off on this crazy journey that could end up where? I mean, it was unplanned. It was just a road trip. So once we saw that it could happen, it had to happen. And then we just had to figure out, how do we not lose our shirt doing it? And there's a happy ending to the story, so that's good.
And from a technical standpoint, rigging the cameras in and around it, right? That's got to be...
Yeah, it made the thing a lot harder to make, because they're not just these like boring sit down interviews. Everybody's playing music in the back of the car, talking in the back of the car, helping us push the car because it breaks down. All those things, they added a lot of time and a lot of intensity to our process, but they make the film what it is.
Speaking of interviews, thanks for bringing that up. Alec Baldwin, Ethan Hawke, and there's a bunch of musicians. How do you decide which talking heads to feature?
Everybody who's in the film, whether they're a famous person or a not famous person, they intersect with some part of the film's poetic narrative about Elvis in America. So we were following Elvis's ghost across the country in a way, and everywhere we went was a milestone in his life. Tupelo, Mississippi, where he's born; Memphis, where he rises out of nowhere; Nashville, where he kind of starts to become part of the conventional music business; and then New York, where he blows up for the world from the top of the Empire State Building, and so on. So we keep going, then across the country to Hollywood and Vegas. Everywhere we went, we were following Elvis's ghost and following his footsteps as a kind of narrative device, story arc. Well, along the way, of course, we wanted to talk to the key people in each place, key people who knew him or key people just who represent that place. So somebody like Alec Baldwin, he's never met Elvis Presley, but Alec Baldwin knows everything there is to know about being like a wannabe, would-be, very famous, struggling sometimes, successful at other times. He even talked about struggling with his weight. Like, Alec Baldwin is a big old celebrity, living in New York City, being a big old celebrity and having a lot of... he's got a lot of the humor and he knows everything from the inside. So he's had that life to a small degree. And so understanding what's it like to be in New York, what's it like to try to break out in New York, what's it like to be a entertainer with, a throng of people. Every time we went anywhere with Alec Baldwin or out here with Ashton Kutcher or somebody, they're surrounded by people. What's that life like? So even though a lot of what we wanted to look at was the real on the ground reality for somebody like Elvis Presley and the real on the ground reality for America right now, it wasn't lost on me that Elvis was a gigantic, supernova of a celebrity. And so getting some sense from celebrities of how they viewed his life and what their small version of that is like in today's day and age was also very poetic, very interesting.
Your documentary opened my eyes to certain aspects about Elvis that was not appealing. I'm not talking about his film choices. I'm talking about like his inaction when it comes to civil rights and all that social issues. And that represents a lot of people in our country that's like, you know what, I'm just going to stay out of it. Like, what do you want to say about that aspect about Elvis? Like, he could have done more. He has the power. He had the influence. It kind of like made you feel sad as a fan that he didn't do nothing.
I don't think that Americans who say, I'll stay out of it, are being Americans. I think that if you don't want to say something, nobody should ever command you to say something. But the idea that Americans should expect people to shut up ever seems to be un-American. The whole point was that we spoke out against the oppressions of a king, and we dumped the tea in the ocean, and we fought a revolutionary war, and people died and their blood soaked the earth to be able to kneel when the national anthem is sung. So, for example, what's going on today in the controversy of trying to block certain people because they're famous, or certain people because they're not famous, or it doesn't matter. Everybody should say and communicate within dignity and within decency and within respect the things that they want to communicate. I think that Elvis Presley chose not to is his choice, so I'm not there to blame him for that choice. But what happened is that Elvis Presley is often looked at as having kind of stolen black music, for example.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck D, who's in the film and who famously called Elvis a racist in the song Fight the Power, Chuck D was very careful in the film to say, I didn't call him a racist because he played black music or played his own version of black music. That's culture. He said, you would never tell a young African-American kid not to play Mozart because he doesn't have German roots. You would never do that because that's beautiful that he wants to share a culture like that. Likewise, Chuck D said, it's beautiful that Elvis is a culture sharer. That's beautiful. We should commend that. We should commend that Elvis in the 50s was playing black music when other white people wouldn't go near that, when they would have been hung for doing that. So that's all to the credit of Elvis. I think what people then worry about with Elvis, who are critics of Elvis, is that as he got older, and the black community, for example, needed all the help it could get in the civil rights movement, they got that help from Marlon Brando. They got that help from Jane Fonda. They got it from so many people who joined the civil rights movement and marched alongside Martin Luther King and others. But they didn't get it from Elvis Presley. And why? It's Monday morning quarterbacking to say why Elvis didn't do that, and it may not be fair to him. Elvis was an addict. Elvis was struggling with all kinds of things inside himself, and those don't entirely get somebody off the hook for having to be a full and thorough person, but we also can't expect too much from him. As Emmylou Harris says in the film, Elvis was the first person to whom this happened, this kind of explosive, meteoric fame and success and power. How was he supposed to deal with this? How was he supposed to know what the right things to do were? There was nobody before him that he could use as a mentor or a role model. So my heart goes out to him in that respect also, and so the film is critical of that and might shed some light on that. But I hope what you take from it more is just, what are we all doing when we are called upon to step up? What are we doing right now? The president has created concentration camps for juveniles at the border of this country. And you and I are sitting here talking about a movie. Now, maybe it's a worthwhile movie to talk about, and maybe you do good with the work you do and the way you reach your audience of viewers and listeners. But we both have to ask ourselves, are we using our time to the best? And will somebody sit 20 years from now and say, Eugene was sitting here having this interview, and what was he really doing for the world? So we all have to ask those questions. It's super important, and that's what asking it about Elvis is about. It's not about blaming Elvis, but it's just saying there's a human being, I'm a human being. How do we best use our time on earth? What are we doing to better this world? And I think we have a lot of questions about that as a country right now that everybody's dealing with.
If Elvis was around today, do you think he would like what he sees in America, or how he views the state of our society today?
Well, I think there's a grand misunderstanding in this country that Elvis was somehow a right-wing person. Elvis was clearly not a right-wing person. You can see that in the politics of everything he did. So when Elvis made In the Ghetto and sang for Black America at a crucial time in his career, that is not a right-wing song. That's a left-wing song. And that is true throughout Elvis's life. And that doesn't mean I think Elvis is saying I'm a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. But I think that we put out the trailer for this film about a week ago, and it got hundreds of thousands of views very quickly. And I was really proud of that it got so many views. And go check it out. Go look at the comments, and you will see an unmitigated stream of hate mail being sent to me about the trailer. Not about the movie. I think when people see the movie, they'll see what a fair and I hope kind movie it is. But what they write on those notes on YouTube and those comment sections on all the online stuff, it's some of the most hateful stuff you've ever seen. As if just by questioning any single thing about Elvis, any hair on his head, I've attacked the sacred American dream itself.
No.
Well, I didn't attack the American dream. Capitalism did. Big business did. A government that sold out the American people did. A two-party system that turned its back on working people and what the American dream and the New Deal and any caring for each other was about. That did. All I'm doing is saying there's a poetry in how it went wrong for Elvis, and we better use him as a cautionary tale. If he lived and died for anything, it ought to be to help better this world. And he will really better this world if people learn from Elvis. Don't put power and money ahead of your authenticity. Don't put it before the things that really matter.
That leads me to my last question. Is American Dream dead? Because some people say American Dream is a myth. It was never alive to begin with.
Well, that's crucial. I mean, the American dream for who? Of course there was an American dream for Elvis. He's a white man. There was no American dream for black people. There was no American dream for women, for minorities. There's been a real struggle for all those groups to have any piece of the American dream. Are there pieces of it available to all of us? Sure, but this thing isn't supposed to be broken into pieces. The American dream, freedom is not something you divide. Dignity is not something you divide. You want to have it. You want to have it because everybody wants to have it. So I would say of the American dream that it's a global dream. America has no right branding that dream. Everybody in this world, from Indonesia to America, wants to be free, wants chances, wants to be respected, wants to express themselves in a clear and pure way. And America, if they're anything, is supposed to be a leader among equals in this world. And we're supposed to get to a point where there's a dream for everybody. And I think the learning experience here is that the struggle for the American dream to be made real here, as goes America, so goes the world. We either win this struggle or we don't. And if we do, the world wins. And if we don't, the world is going to lose.
All right, sir. And it opens this weekend, the King, right?
It does.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.